In the 1620s, the governor of Plymouth Colony had to apologize to his guests. The best food he could put in front of them was lobster. No bread, just lobster and a cup of water, and he was embarrassed by it. Today, that same lobster is a $50 plate. 3 of the fanciest foods on any menu started out as garbage, prison rations, and cat food. Here is how scarcity and fashion flipped the poor man's dinner into a rich man's flex. Start with lobster. In colonial New England, lobsters were everywhere. After storms, they piled up on the Massachusetts shore in heaps nearly 2 feet high. Farmers ground them into fertilizer for their fields and stuck them on hooks as bait. Lobster was cheap fuel for the people at the bottom: prisoners, apprentices, and servants. It was so common on the bottom rung that a popular but undocumented legend even says servants had it written in that they would not be fed lobster more than 3 times a week. Then the railroads changed everything. In the 1870s, rail lines served cheap lobster to inland passengers who had never tasted it and sold it as a delicacy. Maine canneries had been packing it by the ton since the 1840s. Once the fresh coast reached the hungry interior, the price climbed, and yesterday's prison food became a luxury. Next, oysters. In the 1800s, oysters were not fancy at all. They were fast food for the poor. In London, street sellers moved them by the barrel. So cheap that in 1836, Charles Dickens wrote that poverty and oysters always seemed to go together. New York was wilder still. The harbor held some of the biggest oyster beds on earth, and oyster sellers packed the streets. On the famous Canal Street plan, 6 cents bought you all the oysters you could swallow. Working people ate them by the dozen. Then people wrecked it. Over-harvesting stripped the beds bare, and sewage from the booming city poisoned the water. By 1927, New York shut down its polluted oyster beds over disease fears. The supply collapsed, and the cheap street snack turned into a white tablecloth splurge. Last, the fatty tuna called toro. In sushi bars today, it is the star. The melt-in-your-mouth cut people pay the most for. In old Japan, it was trash. Before refrigeration, the oily belly spoiled fast, so cooks tossed it out or fed it to the cats. The Japanese even had a word for a fish this low, nekomatagi, meaning even a cat would step right over it. The lean red meat was fine, soaked in soy sauce to keep, but the fatty toro was garbage. Tastes shifted after World War II, as richer food came into fashion and refrigeration caught up. Toro went from throwaway to prize. How far did it climb? In January 2019, a Tokyo sushi boss named Kiyoshi Kimura paid 333 million yen, about $3 million, for one bluefin tuna at the Toyosu market auction. Cat food became the most expensive fish in the world, so there is the pattern. Lobster, oysters, and toro were all poor people's food, fed to prisoners, sold on street corners, and thrown to the cats. What made them fancy was not flavor. It was scarcity plus fashion. We fished the oysters out. We canned and shipped the lobster until it felt rare.